That is not part of the uniform, Ken. You need to take that off.
This outfit is too matchy-matchy as it is, and so I was just trying to break it up with some simple horizontal lines.
What type belt is that, candidate? What is that?
D&G.
What is D&G?
Dolce & Gabbana, hello?
Hello? You have an attitude, candidate? Do we detect an attitude?
That's your friend Bruno. Apparently, as we talked about this, I think it was at the first meeting, funny or entirely indicting the gay lifestyle for the purposes of making a couple of bucks in Hollywood. Here on set, Rashad Robinson, Senior Director of Media Programs for the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, GLAAD. Contessa Brewer into the conversation with us here. Journalist and commentator Stephen A. Smith, and newfound friend of the show. It's nice to see you here, Mr. Smith. And then from Los Angeles film critic for Access Hollywood, Scott Mann. Scott and Rashad are the only two in this conversation, unless you've seen it, Contessa, that have seen the film. So I'm going to begin with the two of you because we're speaking from positions of obvious ignorance. And I'm going to begin with you as a film critic. Scott, very quickly, is this any more outrageous than some of the other portrayals of other parodies that you've seen come out of Hollywood?
Well, it's supposed to be outrageous. That's the whole point. It's outrageous and it's funny, but because it's so similar to Borat, Sacha Baron Cohen's movie that came out in 2006, it's hard to avoid the comparisons that as a film, Borat is just a better movie. This movie's so over the top, you really can't take it seriously, and the controversy is just, I think people are just looking for something to talk about, and it's not really
So you
there.
argue that it's almost, that it's so outrageous that it's become predictable. In other words, once you know that this guy's going to walk in and do whatever he's going to do, and he does it, and you're like, oh, that's what he does. Do you agree with that, Rashad?
No, I don't. I think, Scott's in L.A., and I think that, he's in a place where gay and lesbian people experience tremendous protections even after Proposition 8. Gay people can still be fired from their jobs in 30 states. Gay parents, do not have protections in a number of states. In fact, parts of this movie were filmed in Arkansas, where this past election, gay and lesbian parents a ballot initiative happened where gay and lesbian people were denied adoption rights in the state. And so we, at GLAAD believe that words and images matter. And, this movie is going to play different in New York than in L.A., and it's going to have concrete harms in many parts of the state where people are not very visible.
So when you get into a situation where you've got, whenever we talk about the marijuana conversation yesterday, marijuana being effectively legal in California and 20 other states and totally illegal in other states, you're talking about the same type of a cultural divide in a different way. In other words, what's the responsibility of one piece of the culture, whether it's the legalized marijuana group in Southern California or the coastal groups that are comfortable with gay and lesbian relations and gay and lesbian lifestyle as part of their day-to-day life, and extreme portrayals of that then have very negative impacts on children, whether it's children and drugs, going back to yesterday's conversation, which was General McCaffrey's very valid point, or children and racism, sexism, gender, all the biases that come in this country when you are not a successful, you're not an adult, you're not Barry McCaffrey's 40-year-old smoking pot in Oregon, you're a 13-year-old vulnerable in the ghetto. You are a gay man or woman in Arkansas. And why is that his problem, basically? Why is that Sacha Baron Cohen's problem, and how do you deal with that?
Well, when we talked to the filmmakers, they invited us into an early screening, and they said that, their intent was to expose homophobia and to shed a light on homophobia. And so we actually sat in the theater behind, a big focus group theater, and behind a group of about probably 18 to 19-year-old young men.
Right.
And we saw them laughing, and they were not laughing at kind of homophobia being exposed. They were laughing at this kind of over-top portrayal of gay folks. And maybe kind of in a place like California where gay people are very visible, people might walk out of the theater and not feel away.
Right.
But in places where this poster and this cultural imprint is going to take place in Birmingham and Arkansas and all across the country, that's going to have concrete harms for young people who are going to go back to school and be bullied with this.
Stephen and then Jonathan, go ahead.
I'll tell you what alarms me about it, and I speak right now as an African American. You have to be sensitive. If he were a homosexual, then perhaps I could have absorbed it a little bit differently, because he's talking about a community that he supposedly is familiar with, or he's trying to portray from a knowledgeable perspective. He's not. he's making fun of it. He's being over the top with it. And I think you have a responsibility to be sensitive to other people. You don't know how they're going to feel, like you alluded to. You don't know what they're going to be subjected to. And when you try to portray a certain image, even though you're clearly over the top and you're having a good time with it, yeah, you are having a good time with it, but at whose expense?
In other words, if me and a bunch of my white friends got together and did a funny movie about the black lifestyle,
that would be a problem.
Which we imagined in our heads.
That would be a problem. We would have a big time problem.
And that's the issue.